Lear. If you haven't seen it, I posted the comedies exam. There's like 7 or 8 topics you can choose from. 6, 7 or 8, I think you can choose from. You can either turn it in via email before or first thing class Wednesday morning. 600 to 900 words, so not that long, 2 to 3 pages at most. All the instructions are there. If you have questions, send me an email. So we are picking up Act 1, Scene 3. And I think where we left off the other, I'm going to try to get through a bunch today. I think where we left off the other day was right when the king leaves the audience he has held with Hotspur and the others, and his parting words are my line 122, "My Lord Northumberland, we license your departure with your son." That is, you're welcome to leave. "Send us your prisoners or you will hear of it." Okay? He leaves with Blunt and all the others in their following. And Hotspur says, "And if the devil come and roar for them, I will not send them. I will after straight and tell him so, for I will ease my heart. Albeit I make a hazard of my head." That is, I'm going to get this off my chest, even though I might lose my head for it. Okay? Northumberland. What? Drunk with choler. Drunk with anger. He's telling his son, chill. Stay and pause. Okay? Hotspur he's on a roll, man. Speak of, Mortimer Zounds, I will speak of him, blah, 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 blah. Worcester comes in. "Who struck this heat up after I was gone?" That is, who got him so riled up? Hotspur's still almost talking to himself. "He will forsooth have all my prisoners, and when I urge the ransom." Worcester, I cannot blame him. So notice, Worcester and Northumberland are talking, and Hotspur's over there just kind of frothing at the mouth almost. His name's important. Okay? A hot spur. What's a spur used for?
Clanking a horse.
Yeah, get that horse moving. A hot spur, something hot like a brand touched, spurs the horse into action. What is this telling us about Harry/Henry Percy? Hotspur's real name, Henry Percy. He's also called the Harry. Hal is also called Harry. So you got to keep the two straight. We're going to have a scene where the two of them are together and they're referring to each other as Harry. Okay? He's uncontrollable. You also use a spur with the bits to help control the horse. Hotspur is hot and uncontrollable. Okay? So what do you need to do with a character like Hotspur? I don't mean a character. With a warrior like Hotspur on your side.
You gotta try to control him.
How? Direct him to the enemy. Direct him to the fight. Kill. Hulk. Smash. That kind of thing. Okay? So, was not he proclaimed by Richard that dead is the next of blood? Worcester says. Okay, Worcester isn't talking about Hotspur. He's talking about Mortimer. The same Mortimer that has now been captured by Glendower, that Henry will not lift a finger to defend/redeem from Glendower. That is, he won't launch an assault to get Mortimer back. Notice, Worcester has just given us the motivation for why Henry won't do that. Mortimer should be king, not Henry. Northumberland, he was. I heard the proclamation. And then it was when the unhappy king, whose wrongs in us God pardon, did set forth upon his Irish expedition. That is, the king said before he left the realm of England, if I fall in this Irish war, Mortimer will be king after me. Okay? He's closest in blood. Bolingbroke was not. who becomes Henry IV. From whence he intercepted did return to be deposed, that is, when he did come upon his return to England, Richard II was caught. Okay? He was deposed, and when Northumberland says, whose wrongs in us God pardon, he's deposed because Northumberland helps Henry Bolingbroke in the deposing. So nobody's guiltless, in other words, right? So, Worcester, and for whose death we in the world's wide mouth live scandalized and foully spoken of. That is, the world's wide mouth refers to whom? The people. Yeah, the populace. They all think that Worcester and Northumberland, and probably Mortimer to some extent, but definitely Worcester, Northumberland, Hotspur were involved in the deposing of Richard II. They were, but then also in the death, that they were accomplices, essentially. Hotspur. But did King Richard then proclaim my brother Edmund Mortimer heir to the crown? He heard that part. He's coming a few seconds late. He's like, what? He did. Nay, then I cannot blame his cousin king, that is, Henry Bolingbroke. Hotspur's like, oh, now I get it. That wished him on the barren mountain starve. But shall it be that you that set the crown upon the head of this forgetful man, and for his sake wear the detested blot of murderous subornation? Shall it be that you, a world of curses undergo, being the agents or base second means, the cords, the ladder, or the hangman rather? That is it right that you are given the titles of hangman, of executioner, etc.? Oh, pardon me that I descend so low to show the line and the predicament wherein you range under this subtle king. Descend so low. He's punning there. Because Hotspur is what to Northumberland? Son, descendant. He hangs from Northumberland. So he's like, pardon me, pardon, forgive me, God, that I hang so low from my father to show the line and the predicament wherein you range under the subtle king. Shall it for shame be spoken in these days, or fill up chronicles in time to come? It's an idea Shakespeare loves. This idea that the actions we do today will be the history books of the future. That men of your nobility and power to gauge them both in an unjust behalf. Unjust. You two unjustly put Bolingbroke on the throne and deposed Richard. Why unjustly? Because no one can depose a king. The king is God's representative, even though that's exactly what they've done. So, to gauge them both in an unjust behalf, as both of you, God pardon it, have done, to put down Richard, that sweet, lovely rose, and plant this thorn, this canker, Bolingbroke. Shall it in no more shame be further spoken that you were fooled, discarded, and shook off by him, that is, and now that he has the crown, what use does he have for them? None. He has shaken them off like dust off their shoes, off his shoes. So, Worcester, peace, cousin, say no more. Couple of reasons. He realizes Hotspur's building up, the tea kettle's getting hot, okay? And what else? We don't need you reminding us of all the things we did. He says, now will I unclasp a secret book, and to your quick conceiving discontents, I'll read you matter deep and dangerous. That is, I have more information. So, Northumberland to Worcester, imagination of some great exploit drives him beyond the bounds of patience. That is, Hotspur's already thinking what he's going to do to Henry. Or thinks he's thinking of what he's going to do. And Northumberland's like, there's no talking to him when he gets like this. Okay? By heaven, methinks it were an easy leap to do what? to pluck bright honor from the pale-faced moon, or dive into the bottom of the deep, where fathom line could never touch the ground. What is he thinking about honor? It's easily won. Easy to achieve. Worcester, he apprehends a world of figures here. That is, he's using figurative language. Okay? So, good cousin, give me audience for a while. What does Worcester mean? STFU. Just quiet. I cry you mercy. In other words, sorry. Those same noble Scots that are your prisoners, I'll keep them all. Notice he can't shut up. I'll keep them by this. Stop. Those prisoners you shall keep. Nay, I will. That's. Hear you, cousin. A word. Okay. Pottsville. All studies here I solemnly. And Worcester's like, that's it. I'm done. I'll wait till you're calmer. Okay. Northumberland. To his son now. Why, what of a wasp stung and impatient fool art thou to break into this woman's mood? Why does he say Hotspur has a woman's mood? And what does he mean by it? It's not good, obviously.
Is he talking about like when a woman's like, about to start that their mood fluctuates
And
they're moody, like they get angry and then happy and then sad?
And talk about it. He won't shut up. That's what he means by this woman's mood. He just has to express every emotion he's having. Okay? Hotspur. Why, look you, I am whipped and scourged with rods, nettled and stung with pismires, when I hear of this vile politician Bolingbroke. That is, just hearing the name is like being beaten. Okay? They go on, they talk about what happened to Richard at Berkeley Castle, etc., etc. Okay. Worcester says, well, wait till you're done. I've done. I have done in faith. Then once more, back to the Scottish prisoners. Deliver them up without their ransom straight. Okay? Make the Douglas son your only mean for powers in Scotland, which for diverse reasons, which I shall send you written, be assured will easily be granted. He says, you, my lord, your son in Scotland, being thus employed, shall secretly into the bosom creep of that same noble prelate, well beloved archbishop, that is, Archbishop of York. What is Worcester doing?
It's like saying to build a good relationship with the Scottish.
Yeah, and with Archbishop of York, which is northern England, he's starting this plot, this conspiracy, okay, which is going to be against Henry IV. Okay. So they do keep talking about that, and Worcester says, meanwhile, I'll go to Glendower and Mortimer, okay, where you and the Douglas and our powers at once, as I will fashion it, shall happily meet. That is, I will talk to Glendower and Mortimer, and you with the Douglas and the northern powers will meet there. Why? Because they're going to put up a force, make a front to oppose Henry. So the plot begins. 2-1. 2-1 we're going to skip. 2-2. We get the Gads Hill robbery planned, which I'm going to skip. 2-3. Hotspur's at home with his wife, Lady Percy. Her name's Elizabeth. Okay? If you go to Alnwick Castle, if you ever have an opportunity to go to England, go up to the town of Alnwick, Anmouth, A-L-N, mouth, but it's pronounced Anmouth, and go to Alnwick Castle, which is about 5 miles outside of Alnwick. It's the Northumberland ancestral home. It's the second largest continuously inhabited castle in England. It's been inhabited by the Percy family since the 1200s. Okay? And you go through the main gate, And there's this massive steel statue, iron statue, whatever it is, of Hotspur, Harry Percy. Okay? Pretty cool. So, he's there, presumably. That castle, it's huge. You'll recognize it if you've seen the Harry Potter films and a lot of other stuff shot in England. And he's reading this letter. Okay? And his wife comes in. And he says, I've got to leave. She's like, why? Why are you thus alone? For what a sense have I this fortnight been a banished woman from my Harry's bed? Why haven't we slept together for 2 weeks? Okay? And she goes on and on, big long, passage about what she's been hearing and what she's been, hearing him whisper and et cetera, cannons and frontiers, and he's planning for war and battle. She just wants a little roll in the hay every once in a while. Okay? Hotspur calls a servant, sends him out. He and his wife go back and forth. In line 74, he says, what sayest thou, my lady? He wasn't paying attention. What is it carries you away? What? My horse, my love, my horse. He's making light. Out, you mad-headed ape. A weasel hath not such a deal as spleen as you are tossed with. The spleen was the source of anger. He doesn't have time for the nice conventions of married life. He's got a king to overthrow. In faith, I'll know your business, Harry, that I will. I fear my brother Mortimer to stir about his title, that is, the title that he's has a right to, the title of king, and hath sent for you to line his enterprise. My brother is trying to get you involved in deposing the king, she said. Hotspur, so far afoot I shall be weary, love. That is, I'm going to be far away from you. Come, answer me directly unto this question that I ask. In faith, I'll break thy little finger, Harry, and if thou wilt not tell me all. And that's probably stage direction. She grabs his finger so that he can't walk out and says, I'll break it until you answer. Away, you trifler. Love, I love thee not. I care not for thee, Kate. This is no world to play with mammoths' breasts and to tilt with lips. We must have bloody noses and cracked crowns and pass them current too. God's me, my horse. I don't have time for domestic happiness. Okay? Do you not love me? Do you not indeed? Well, do not then, for since you love me not, I will not love myself. What's she suggesting? Could be a, Hotspur. Come, wilt you see me off? Okay? And when I am a horseback, I will swear I love thee infinitely. But hark you, Kate, I must not have you henceforth question me whither I go and the reason whereabout. Whither I must, and to conclude this evening, must I leave you. Why can't he tell her? Exactly. Great answer. What's the problem with that answer? If enemies capture her, they probably torture her anyways. Only now she will say, I don't know, and so you get tortured to death. And even necessarily, if she says, oh, well, he's going to, they still may not believe you, and still torture. That's the problem with torture. Okay? So, and so far will I trust thee, gentle Kate. How so far? Not an inch further. But hark you, Kate, whither I go, thither shall you go too. Tomorrow will I set forth, today will I set forth, tomorrow you. Now that's got two parts to it. Whither, he says, I go, thither shall you go too. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is the reason he gives in the next line, and the other is because wherever he goes, she is with him, up here or in here. But then the obvious part, when he arrives where he's going, he will send for her, and she'll come later. The idea is once the battle is over. Okay? So, 2-4, we get the Gads Hill robbery, which I'm going to skip. Sheriff comes in at the end. Yeah, I'm going to skip all that. Go to Act 3. Actually, I should not have turned the page, I don't think. Hotspur enters with Worcester, Mortimer, and Glendower. So, these are the conspirators. This is probably Glendower's castle. And Mortimer says these promises are fair, the party sure, our induction full of prosperous hope. We don't know specifically what the promises are. They're going to be explained in a few minutes. Probably, division of the land and all that kind of stuff. So Hotspur asks Mortimer and Glendower to sit. And he says, Uncle Worcester, I forgot the map. Glendower pulls out a map. Okay. Says, here it is. Sit, cousin Percy. Sit, good cousin Hotspur. This cousin Percy is referring to Lord Northumberland. Okay. And then Hotspur is his son. For by that name, as oft as Lancaster doth speak of you, his cheek looks pale, and with a rising sigh, he wisheth you in heaven. Okay. And you in hell, as oft as he hears Owen Glendower spoken of. Okay? So let me rephrase that. Sit, good cousin cousin Percy, good cousin Hotspur. I misspoke. He's not talking about Northumberland and Hotspur. He's talking about just Hotspur. He is Northumberland. He's also Hotspur. The reason I had to make that clarification is we're going to find out Northumberland isn't there. So, and he mentions Lancaster. Who's Lancaster? John of Lancaster, Prince Henry's younger brother. Okay? That's why he says, for by that name, as oft as Lancaster doth speak of you, his cheek looks pale. John of Lancaster is younger than Prince Hal and younger than Hotspur. And he's saying, when he even uses your name, his face goes kind of white. Why? What did King Henry say about Hotspur? His very name is the theme of Honor's tongue. He's a great warrior and such. So, Hotspur, and you in hell, as oft as he hears Owen Glendower spoke of. That is, he thinks of you in hell. And he wishes, Hotspur's replying, Glendower said, Lancaster, when he thinks of you, he wishes you were in heaven. Why? So he wouldn't be a problem here. Glendower, I cannot blame him. That is, wishing me in hell. At my nativity, the front of heaven was full of fiery shapes. The front of heaven, the sky. There were flames in the sky. Supposedly, and this goes back to much of the English history plays are based upon Raphael Holinshed's it's like history of England, Ireland, and England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. I can't remember the exact title, but it's Raphael Holinshed is the author that Shakespeare had access to. Okay, and there's a passage in it that talks about these portents in the skies when Glendower was born. Okay, and so he says, Glendower finishes, and at my birth the frame and huge foundation of the earth shake like a coward. There's an earthquake. Okay, Hotspur. Why, so it would have done at the same season if your mother's cat had but kittened, though yourself had never been born. So, portents indicate what? According to Glendower, greatness. Why do portents occur? Think of the great chain of being that I talked about ages ago, and along with that idea of correspondences. okay? Which is that things that occur in the heavens have correspondences down here. Things that occur in the spiritual world have correspondences or correlating kind of actions here. So if there's an earthquake, it must mean, which is obviously a great shaking of the earth, it must mean something is going to happen in human affairs. Go back to Midsummer Night's Dream. Why are there fogs? Why are animals dying? Female animals not having live births, etc., because of the problems in the marriage between Titania and Oberon. So, Glendower, at my birth there was an earthquake. What does Hotspur say? And there would have been an earthquake even if you weren't born. The same as if your mother's cat had kittens. Glendower, I say the earth did shake when I was born. And I say the earth was not of my mind. If you suppose as fearing you, it shook. Okay? Glendower is testifying to his greatness. The earth shook at his birth. What is Hotspur doing? No. There's a natural explanation. It has nothing to do with your birth. Hotspur is trying to bring Glendower down, trying to knock him a few pegs down the, lower his esteem of himself. Let me put it that way. The heavens were all on fire, the earth did tremble. Then the earth shook to see the heavens on fire, and not in fear of your nativity. Diseased nature oftentimes breaks forth in strange eruptions. Notice, nature is diseased. There's a problem in nature, okay? Off the teeming earth is with a kind of colic, pinched and vexed by, I laugh every time I think of this line, this passage, by the imprisoning of unruly wind within her womb, which for enlargement striving shakes the old beldam earth and topples down steeples and moth-grown towers. At your birth our grandam earth, having this distemperature in passion shook. What has he just said happened? The earth passed gas when Glendower was born. Glendower, cousin, of many men I do not bear these crossings. These antagonizing statements of yours. Give me leave to tell you once again. Give me leave means what? Pardon me, excuse me, don't oppose me. We're going to hear somebody say to Hamlet, I will take my leave of you. And Hamlet says, you can't take anything. I would not with more withal gladly give the leave. I do not bear these crossings. Give me leave to tell you once again that at my birth the front of heaven was full of fiery shapes. The goats ran from the mountains, and the herds were strangely clamorous to the frighted fields. These signs have marked me extraordinary. Animals do behave strangely before earthquakes. From California, grew up, lots of earthquakes. Dogs would start barking before they happen. Cats would start moving around. Weird birds go suddenly silent, like a few seconds before. We don't have any idea why all this stuff happens, okay? So that's what he's talking about. In the courses of my life to show I am not in the role of common men. Okay? I'm not like you, is what he means. Where is he living, clipped in with the sea that chides the banks of England, Scotland, Wales, which calls me pupil, or hath read me? Where is the living person who can say, they've taught me? Bring him out, that is but woman's son, can trace me in the tedious ways of art, and hold me pace in deep experiments. He's talking about the legend that Glendower was a magician or sorcerer. Don't think Dumbledore kind of, think dark arts, Hotspur. I think there's no man speaks better Welsh. And now Hotspur probably doesn't speak Welsh. So when he's saying that, he might mean you're just speaking a bunch of gobbledygook. Okay? I'm going to dinner. In other words, no one can oppose you. He's not agreeing. He's just saying, there's no arguing with you. Well, Hotspur saying that to Glendower is kind of like what? What Worcester and Northumberland were saying to Hotspur before, when Hotspur wouldn't let go of the whole thing about, having to release the hostages and such, when they couldn't get a word in edgewise. Mortimer, peace, cousin. You'll make him mad. I can call spirits from the vasty deep. So can I, or so can any man. But will they come? It's a proof. I can teach you, cousin, to command the devil, and I can teach thee to shame the devil by telling. Why is this here? What's the point? I mean, Shakespeare goes on, 100 lines almost. Largely between just Hotspur and Glendower. I mean, Mortimer has a few lines in there, but it's largely Hotspur and Glendower. How should accomplices be acting? How should conspirators who are plotting to overthrow a king?
Shouldn't they all join together?
Yeah, there should be comity, C-O-M-I-T, between them. They should be on the same page. And what do we see? We see strong personalities opposing. Not a recipe for a successful plot to overthrow. Okay? So, Mortimer, come. No more of this, line 60, unprofitable chat. Meaning, this is pointless. It's not getting us to our goal. So what is the conversation supposed to be about? Okay? 61, Glendower. 3 times hath Henry Bolingbroke made head against my power. That is, 3 times Bolingbroke has opposed me militarily. Thrice from the banks of Wye and Sandy Bottom Severn have I sent him back bootless home and weather beaten back. He's tried to defeat me in battle 3 times, and 3 times I've repelled him. Okay? I'm stronger than he is. Hotspur. Home without boots, and in foul weather too? Because bootless home, what does bootless mean?
Unsuccessful.
It means unsuccessful. It doesn't mean without boots. It means without booty, without reward, without treasure. Okay? Hotspur puns on that. Okay? Glendower, here's the map. Okay? All started because you pulled out the map first. Here's the map. Shall we divide our right according to our threefold order taken? So here's the map they're going to draw of England and how it's going to be divided according to their forces. Mortimer, the archdeacon hath divided it into 3 limits very equally. Why very equally? Shouldn't the most powerful of the 3 get the most land? Well, if you're the most powerful, that's probably what you think. And so it's being divided by rivers. From Trent and Severn hitherto, by south and east, is to my part assigned, that is, I, Mortimer, get that part. All the fertile land within that bound to Owen Glendower. Westward, Wales beyond the Severn, all the fertile land within that bound. So from the Severn River, which runs, if London's down here, Wales is over here, the Severn runs up like this, everything west of the Severn, that's not just modern day Wales. Shrewsbury, I think Worcester is included there also. And dear cuz, to you the remnant northward lying off from Trent and our indentures tripartite are drawn. Okay? So, 3 relatively equal plots. Okay? Glendower agrees. Hotspur, line 93. Methinks my moiety, that is my portion, north from Burton here, in quantity equals not one of yours. They're not equal. I have the smallest of the three. Okay? So he says, I'm going to redirect one of these rivers, so it shall not wind with such a deep indent to rob me of so rich a bottom here. That is, good pasture land. Glendower, not wind. It shall, it must. In other words, no, you're not. Why? Because Glendower realizes if he redirects that stream, that's taking away land from Glendower. Okay? Mortimer, yes, but so they agree, kind of, to make some tweakings to the map and such. And Glendower leaves, and Mortimer says to Hotspur, "Fie, cousin Percy, how you cross my father." Why does he call him his father? Mortimer is not Glendower's son. He married Glendower's daughter. So he's his son-in-law. Hotspur, I cannot choose. That is, I cannot choose what? How I respond. What's Hotspur telling us? He lacks self-control. He acts according to what his emotions say. If he's angry, boom, full bore. That's the way he goes. Okay? I cannot choose. Sometimes he angers me with telling me of the mold warp and the ant, of the dreamer Merlin and his prophecies, and of a dragon and a finless fish, blah, 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 blah. Okay? He says he held me last night at least 9 hours in reckoning up the several devils' names that were his lackeys. Mortimer. In faith, he is a worthy gentleman, exceedingly well read, and profited in strange concealments. That is, he has kind of secret knowledge and powers and such. Okay? He tells Hotspur essentially to back off. Worcester, then to Hotspur, line 173. In faith, my lord, you are to willful blame. He says, your will is to blame. You choose to be this way, is what he's saying. And since you're coming hither, have done enough to put him quite besides his patience. That is, you've done nothing since you arrived here, but antagonize Glendower. You must needs learn, Lord, to amend this fault. Though sometimes it show greatness, sometimes it show greatness, courage, blood. Blood meaning,
Strength.
yeah, strength, kind of righteous anger and getting in someone's face. And that's the dearest grace it renders you. Yet oftentimes it, this willful blamefulness, it doth present harsh rage. Harsh rage is uncontrollable, unthought of, unmanaged. Defect of manners, want of government, that's lack of self-control, pride, haughtiness, opinion, disdain, the least of which haunting a nobleman loseth men's hearts, and leaves behind a stain upon the beauty of all parts besides, beguiling them of commendation. Beguiling them. That is, it robs men's hearts of giving commendation. Okay? You've got great qualities, Hotspur. But this lack of self-control is not one of them. Okay? Big warning. Well, I am schooled. Like, golly, you put me in my place. Good manners be your speed. Be your speed. When someone says Godspeed, what does that mean? God give you a quick journey? Nope. God make your journey or whatever your thing, whatever it is you're attempting, make that successful. The speed there means to make successful, to make profitable, to make it work. Good manners be your what? Be your success. What's Hotspur saying?
Good luck.
Yeah, but he's saying good manners be your good luck.
Your
What's
good
he
manners
saying about good manners?
Bring you success.
But what's he saying about them?
That's his thing, not his thing.
Good manners aren't going to win you any battles. You don't go into a battle and go, righto, let's pull out our swords and have an even battle. No. Who wins? The one who does the most hacking. The one who gets the most blows in. So, wives come in, and we have a long scene where Mortimer talks to his wife sings to him, he doesn't understand a lick of what she's saying because she's Welsh, and he doesn't speak Welsh. But it sounds beautiful. If you've ever heard Welsh, it's a beautiful language. It's like French. I mean, it's just an Italian. Not like German. German's like, all these harsh gutturals. Italian's all vowels, Welsh is all vowels almost, except for some initial H's and two L's, okay, together. So, we're going to skip the rest of 3:1. Go to 3:2. Okay? 3:2. So, we skipped the Gad's Hill robbery. Simply because I don't like spending time on it. We'll talk about it in relation to this. The Gad's Hill robbery, Hal is involved, Prince Hal is involved in a robbery, okay? That the character, Gad's Hill, also helps plan, but it occurs at a place called Gad's Hill, and Falstaff's involved. Falstaff does a robbery, and then Hal and Peto rob Falstaff and the others. Falstaff goes on and on about how they were jumped by, it starts off to be like 4, and then 7, and it ends up being something like more than 50, Hal finally shows him, it was just he and Peto. So, 3:2. The king, Prince of Wales, Hal, come in, and others. And the king says to all these others, give us leave, the Prince of Wales and I must have some private conference, but be near at hand, right? Because I'm going to have some words for you. They all leave, excuse me. What does the king do for the entire rest of the scene? I think it's the entire rest of the scene. Almost the entire rest of the scene. What's the purpose of this? What's the audience see happen between Henry IV and Prince Henry? It's a dressing down. It's like, my God, how can you be my son? I know not whether God will have it so, for some disbelieving service I have done, that in his secret doom out of my blood he'll breed revengement and a scourge for me. But thou dost in thy passages of life make me believe that thou art only marked for the hot vengeance and the rod of heaven to punish my mistreadings. Hal, you were born to be my scourge, to punish me for my misdeeds. Tell me else. Could such inordinate and low desires, such poor, such bare, such lewd, such mean attempts, such barren pleasures, rude society, as thou art matched with all and grafted to, accompany the greatness of thy blood and hold their level with thy princely heart? What does he mean that art matched with all and grafted to? Notice all these languages: the poor, the bare, the lewd, the mean attempts, the barren pleasures, the rude society. He's saying your low life living, the people you hang around with, the things you do, okay, how can they occur? You are matched with all and grafted to these and this society. What's the society? Peto, Bardolph, Pwans, probably Mistress Quickly, Falstaff. Grafted to means what?
Connected.
Yeah, but it's more than just connected. Grafting's a horticultural term. You take a tree trunk like this, and you cut it like that, and you bring another variety of tree and engraft it to it, put some stuff on it, tape it, and so this might be an apple, and this might be a pear, and you get apples and pears out of the one tree. I've got one in my front yard. It's colloquially called a fruit cocktail tree. It's peach, apricot, and plum. Okay? So, Hamlet, wrong prince. Prince, so please, your majesty, I would I could quit all offenses with as clear excuse as well as I am doubtless I can purge myself of many I am charged with all. So, I am sure I can cleanse myself with many of the charges I'm charged against. He doesn't say he can do all. Yet such extenuation let me beg, as in reproof of many tales devised, which oft the ear of greatness needs must hear by smiling pickthinks and base newsmongers. So he's saying, some of what you heard are doubtless lies. I may for some things true, wherein my youth hath faulty wandered and irregular, find pardon on my true submission. He says, some things are true. Why? Because I'm just a kid. I'm just a teenager. And he probably is only a teenager. Right? You can't expect me to be perfect as a 18, 17, 19-year-old, whatever age he is. Okay? And he says, and for those I expect pardon because of my true submission. That is, my falling down before you and saying, I'm sorry, Father, please forgive me. King, God pardon you. God pardon you, Harry. Not me. God pardon you. Yet let me wonder, Harry, at thy affections. That is, the people you hold dear, which do hold a wing quite from the flight of all thy ancestors. That is, the people you hold dear, the people you spend time with, because that's how we judge how the people you hold dear, they're the ones you spend your time with. He says, they're not anything like your ancestors. That great family line, Thy place in council thou hast rudely lost. That is, in my council of advisors, which by thy younger brother is supplied, John of Lancaster. He's being a good son. And art almost an alien to the hearts of all the court and the princes of my blood, and that is, in our relations. You're almost an alien, meaning outsider, a foreigner. The hope and expectation of thy time is ruined. What's of thy time? Do you mean the time that you spend during the days? No. The hope and expectation of thy time as king, when you will have to step up. He says, it's ruined. The people don't think you will be a good king.
Isn't that his whole point, though? Like, isn't that what he's doing then?
King hasn't heard his soliloquy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, like, he's just saying this, and Prince is just like, I know what I'm doing.
So when he's saying this, I think, if you were directing this, you could tell Hal, maybe get a little smirk on your face, which is dangerous, because you never want to be smirking at your father when he's reading you the riot act, because Hal is doing that. Intentionally, he's told us. Totally unbeknownst to the king. Okay? In the soul of every man prophetically do forethink, prophesy, thy fall. Everyone thinks when the time comes, you are just going to fail miserably. So, Then Henry gives us this long speech. This is the passage that I alluded to last week. When I said, one day I was talking with my major professor and dissertation director, and he was talking about how back in the mid-'70s, early 70s, a lot of liberals, he was liberal politically, looked at Henry IV as being Nixon. And they looked at this passage as being very Nixonian, okay? Nixon, was Eisenhower's vice president for 8 years. He was the most anti-communist person, even Joe McCarthy wasn't Nixon or Nixonian. Runs for president, loses barely in 1960 to JFK, and completely leaves Washington, goes off to San Clemente where his house is in California, stays out of politics entirely until the 68 election. Runs, wins the primary, wins the election, not by a landslide, not as big as the 72 landslide. But one of the things, a lot of people said was Nixon followed this, meaning he stayed out of the limelight. Look at what Henry says. Had I so lavish of my presence been, so common hackneyed in the eyes of men, so stale and cheap to vulgar company, opinion that did help me to the crown had still kept loyal to possession, and left me in reputeless banishment, a fellow of no mark nor likelihood. Okay, so, had I so lavish been, what's the as? So as you are in the public eye. What's he telling about Henry? Hal, people see you too much, Hal. They see you all the time. They see you everywhere. And where is the everywhere they see him? Coming in and out of bars, coming in and out of brothels is the implication. Okay? He says, if I had been like you, I never would have become king. Okay? So he goes on. By being seldom seen, I could not stir, but like a comet I was wondered at. Right? Why do we pay attention when there are comets? Because they're infrequent. That men would tell their children, this is he. Others would say, where? Which is Bolingbroke? And then I stole all courtesy from heaven and dressed myself in such humility that I did pluck allegiance from men's hearts, loud shouts and salutations from their mouths, even in the presence of the crowned king. Notice, I did what? I dressed myself in such humility. What does that mean? He acted humble. He pretended to be humble. So that even though when he appears, people go, oh, look, it's Bolingbroke, etc. That in his acting of humility, people are drawn to him. He plucked allegiance from men's hearts, notice. Thus did I keep my person fresh and new. What's it mean by fresh? Like brand new, just delivered, just created, just produced. So every time they see him, which is very infrequently, it's like a sudden new comet, as it were. Okay? Fresh and new, my presence, like a robe pontifical, like a pope's robes. His presence what? Ne'er seen, but wondered at. They see him, and they wonder, what's up? Why is he here? What's important? And so my state, that is his position, his status, so to speak, and so my state, seldom but sumptuous, showed like a feast, and won by rareness such solemnity. The skipping king, Richard II, he ambled up and down with shallow jesters and rash baven wits, soon kindled and soon burnt, carded his state, mingled his royalty with capering fools, had his great name profaned with their scorns, and gave his countenance against his name, to laugh at jibing boys and stand the push of every beardless vain comparative. I don't mean to get political, but I'm going to give an example here. This is like, you may not be aware of this, Bill Clinton going on the Arsenio Hall show, no longer around, in the 1990s and answering the question, boxers or briefs, as to what he wears. Too much information. The king is saying, Richard II was seen ambling, capering, dancing around with his friends, with his lackeys, carting the wealth of state, that is, parting it out to people, giving bonuses, giving money, giving land to his friends. So that he became of every, to laugh at jibing boys and stand the push of every beardless, vain comparative. He grew a companion to the common streets, enfeoffed himself, that is, made himself like a vassal to popularity, that being daily swallowed by men's eyes, they surfeited with honey and began to loathe the taste of sweetness. They had too much of it. And it was like, when you eat so much candy that you just don't want to, Whereof a little more than a little is by much too much. So when he had occasion to be seen, that is, when the king wanted or needed to be seen, he was but as a cuckoo is in June. That is, you see him all the time. When he needed to be seen, when there was something of import, people didn't pay any attention. Heard, not regarded. That is, they heard him, but again, didn't pay any attention. Seen, but with such eyes as sick and blunted with community, afford no extraordinary gaze. Such as is bent on sun-like majesty when it shines seldom in admiring eyes, but rather drowsed and hung their eyelids down, slept in his face, and rendered such aspect as cloudy men use to their adversaries, being with his presence glutted, gorged, and full. It became so common to see the king. Nobody went, hey, look, there's the king. That's you, Hal. And in that very line, Harry, standest thou. For thou hast lost thy princely privilege with vile participation. Privilege. What's that mean? By right of law. You've lost your right of law of privacy and being extraordinary. How? By being seen vilely. That's the vile participation. Not an eye, but is a weary of thy common sight. Save mine. Why? Because he's not had common sight of Prince Hal. Prince Hal's not been around, which hath desired to see thee more, which now doth, that I would not have it do, make blind itself with foolish tenderness. And I think what he's suggesting there is he blinds his eyes with foolish tenderness because he's got tears. I've longed to see you more, Henry. And you're out there literally effing around with Falstaff and whores. I shall hereafter, my thrice gracious Lord, be more myself. What's he mean? I'm going to cast off that dull contagion, and I will be like the bright. It's not supposed to be doing that. It did it last week, etc. So that might be the end of the world. Who knows? So the king, for all the world as thou art to this hour, was Richard then when I from France set foot at Ravensburg. And we get a little, just kind of like a mini synopsis of Richard II. When he set foot at Ravensburg, this is when Henry Bolingbroke returns from banishment early. And the people are like, oh, Bolingbroke is back, the Duke of Lancaster. When he returns in Richard II, he doesn't return to overthrow Richard. Well, let me rephrase that. That's my interpretation. That's many people's interpretation. He returns, he says, to reclaim his lands. Because when he was banished, after he was banished for a period of 10 years, he was gone, so he couldn't protect his claims. Richard took all his lands and his dukedom. So when he comes back, he's coming back to reclaim those. He's coming back to say, you go away. You can't do that. This is mine, okay? The other side says, no. He says he's coming back for that. That's just a pretense to take the kingdom. So, and even as I was then, is Percy now. Who's Percy? Hotspur. What has he just done? Hotspur's like me. Are you going to let people think that? Are you going to let people think that Hotspur is the next great shiny thing? Or are you going to take what is yours? Now by my scepter and my soul to boot, he hath more worthy interest to the state than thou the shadow of succession. He's got more right to the throne than you do. For of no right nor color like to right, he doth fill fields with harness in the realm. That is, he's building an army, turns heads against the lion's armed jaws, and being no more in debt to years than thou, that is, no older than you, leads ancient lords and reverend bishops on to bloody battles and to bruising arms. What never dying honor hath he got against renowned Douglas, whose high deeds, whose heart encourages, blah, 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 blah. Wherefore do I tell all this news to you? Line 121. Why, Harry, do I tell thee of my foes, which art my nearest and dearest enemy? You, Harry, you are my nearest and dearest enemy. Why? What's he suggesting? I need you out there. I need you out there raising troops, leading armies. This is what the prince is supposed to do. Thou that art like enough, though through vassal fear, base inclination, and the start of spleen, to fight against me under Percy's pay. Thou that art like enough. He's saying, the way you're behaving, I could see you easily fighting for Hotspur against me. To dog his heels and curtsy at his frowns, to show how much thou art degenerate. And Shakespeare means degenerate by what the word literally means, to fall away from your generation. Generation meaning your nativity from me. You're being born from me. Your relationship to me. And that's what gets Hal's hackles up. That's what, them's fighting words. Do not think so. Notice, 4 short, simple words. You shall not find it so, and God forgive them that have so much have swayed your majesty's good thoughts away from me. In other words, they're going to pay. I will redeem all this on Percy's head, meaning everything you think about me, I'm going to pound on Percy. I'm going to deliver that to Hotspur. And in the closing of some glorious day, be bold to tell you that I am your son. When I will wear a garment all of blood and stain my favor's face in a bloody mask, which washed away shall scour my shame with it. How's he saying he's going to reveal the Son to the people? By being drenched in Hotspur's blood. Because if he can kill Hotspur, the theme of honor's tongue, that who really is the more honorable? I will be. And that shall be the day whene'er it lights, that the same child of honor, notice, not man, child of honor and renown. And he might be saying there that like honors the father and renowns the mother, and he's the offspring of these two. This gallant Hotspur, this all praised knight, and your unthought of Harry chance to meet for every honor sitting on his helm, his crown, his helmet. Would they were multitudes, and on my head my shames redoubled. He's saying, I wish this were the case, that all the honors he had would be multiplied, and all the shames I have would be multiplied. For the time will come that I shall make this northern youth exchange his glorious deeds for my indignities. How will he exchange them? If riff-raff like Hal can defeat Hotspur in battle, what does that say about Hotspur's great abilities, great renown? Percy is but my factor, good my lord, to engross up glorious deeds on my behalf. What does he mean by factor? That's a factor, right? That's what that's called. He's saying, this is Percy to me. When we oppose each other, I will multiply my glories by his. And I will call him to so strict account that he shall render every glory up, even the slightest worship of his time, or I will tear the reckoning from his heart. This in the name of God I promise here. What is that? That's a vow. That's an oath. It's not an oath. This, by all that I hold precious, it's in the name of God. God so help me. The which, if he be pleased, God, I shall perform. I do beseech your majesty may salve the long-grown wounds of my intemperance. In other words, my past behavior has created what? Wounds in Henry IV. And he says, may God use what I'm going to do to wipe on those wounds and heal them. If not, if God isn't pleased with this, the end of life cancels all bonds, and I will die 100,000 deaths ere break the smallest part of this vow. 100,000 rebels die in this. That is, the rebels, the 100,000 deaths. It's almost like Henry saying, well, you've got like 100,000 debts to me, all these indignities, etc. Thou shalt have charge and sovereign trust herein. Sovereign. You will be like king on the battlefield. Okay? So, Blunt comes in. Okay? And the king says, all right, here's what we're doing. He gives the Earl of Westmoreland a charge. With him goes Lord John of Lancaster, etc. He says Wednesday next, Harry will march forth, and they get ready to battle. 3-3, 14 minutes. Falstaff is given charge of men. And let's see here. I'm going to skip a bunch of it. Falstaff and the prince, about 2/3 of the way into that scene, about line 146, Falstaff says to Hal, "Why, Hal, thou knowest as thou art but man, I dare. But as thou art prince, I fear thee as I fear the roaring of the lion's whelp." You're a prince, I fear you. I fear you as much as I fear the roaring of the lion's whelp. What's a lion's whelp?
Cub.
It's cub. How greatly do you fear a
Cub.
Why does Falstaff say this? He thinks he and Hal are what? Like this. That Hal would never threaten him, never do anything harsh to him. Prince, and why not as the lion? Why won't you fear me as the lion? The king himself is to be feared as the lion. Dost thou think I'll fear thee as I fear thy father? Nay. And I do, I pray God, my girdle break. That is, when I do, that my girdle has bust open. He's saying, when I do that, I feel that I should die. Prince, oh, if it should, how would thy guts fall about thy knees? But, sir, there's no room for faith, truth, nor honesty in this bosom of thine. It is all filled up with guts and midriff. That is, there is nothing about you of faith, truth, nor honesty. Falstaff, charge an honest woman with picking thy pocket. Why, thou whoreson, impudent, embossed rascal, if there were anything in thy pocket but tavern reckonings, receipts, memorandums of bawdy houses, that is, addresses of whorehouses, and one poor pennyworth of sugar candy to make thee long-winded, if thy pocket were enriched with any other injuries but these, I am a villain. And yet you will stand to it. You will not pocket up wrong. Are you not ashamed? Dost thou hear how? Thou knowest in the state of innocency, Eden, Adam fell. And what should poor Jack Falstaff do in the days of villainy? Adam fell when the world was perfect. What can I do but fall in the days of villainy? Think how many years beyond Adam and the Garden of Eden we are. Thou seest I have more flesh than another man, and therefore more frailty. Notice the logic of that. If flesh is what leads one to sin, okay, sins of the flesh, and Falstaff is, 300 pounds, how can I help myself? He's essentially saying, okay? So, the prince gives out letters, 8:13. He gives Bardolph a letter to take to John of Lancaster, his brother. He gives another one to take to Westmoreland. He tells Peter to go get horses. He's got miles to ride. 4:1. Let's see here. Hotspur comes in with Worcester and Douglas. And Douglas says to Hotspur, "Thou art the king of honor. No man so potent breathes upon the ground, but I will beard him." Okay? Now, beard, there's a couple of different ways that can be understood. In the Middle Ages, a great affront to a man is to pluck his beard. We actually had a person interview for a job here. She wrote a book on beards and the plucking of beards in the Middle Ages. Okay? It's like the middle finger to somebody. Okay? Hotspur says, "Do so, and 'tis well. What letters hast thou there?" To a messenger comes in. The messenger, these letters come from your father. Letters from him? Why comes he not himself? See, Northumberland was supposed to ride with his army. Northumberland, if I remember right, it's either the largest or second largest county in England, or was back then. Therefore, it meant it had the possibility of the most troops. King does not have a standing army at this point. He has to raise troops. Anybody else who wants to fight then have to raise their own troops. Okay? So, messenger, he cannot come. He is grievous sick. Zounds. What does zounds mean? Anybody know? by God's wounds. Okay? How has he the leisure to be sick in such a jostling time? Like,
That's convenient.
yeah, really. How could he get sick at such a, Who leads his power? So, Dad is staying home. He must have deputized somebody else. Under whose government come they along? His letters bear his mind. I do not. What's the messenger saying? I'm not going to be the one to tell him. Read the letters. Because what do the letters say? Northumberland isn't coming. I prithee, tell me, doth he keep his bed? He did when I left 4 days ago. And the physicians much feared for him. They thought he was dying. Worcester, I would the state of time had first been whole, ere he by sickness had been visited. His health was never better worth than now. That is, we could really use him healthy. Hotspur, sick now, droop now? The sickness doth infect the very lifeblood of our enterprise. 'Tis catching hither even to our camp. No. Now, is Hotspur saying there is a real sickness? Probably. And some of the men in the camp have gotten it. Or is it another kind of sickness? King's pretty strong. Don't know that it's so wise to go up against the king. Yet, he goes on. Yet doth he give us bold advertisement that with our small conjunction we should on, to see how fortune is disposed to us. For as he writes, there is no quailing now, because the king is certainly possessed of all our purposes. That is, he's saying, the letters say, we can't stop, we have to go on, the king must know our plots. What's Hotspur going to suggest will be the result of that? Are they going to die? Are they going to lose? No. He says, okay, it's bad, it's a wound. It's almost like they're channeling, Monty Python, line 43. 42, Worcester. Your father's sickness is a maim to us. What does it mean to be maimed?
Serious injury.
Yeah, it's not a little flesh wound. This is the Monty Python. A perilous gash. One arm is lopped off. Come on, I'll still fight you. The Black Knight. And yet in faith it is not, Hotspur says. His present want seems more than we shall find it. Were it good to set the exact wealth of all our states all at one cast, to set so rich a main on the nice hazard? No. It were not good, for therein should we read the very bottom of the soul of hope, the very list, the very utmost bound of all our fortunes. Douglas, gonna be hard put to it. Worcester, yet I would your father were here. Okay? Hotspur, after Worcester's long speech. You strain too far. I rather of his absence make this use. Okay? So Hotspur's saying, we're going to turn his absence to our advantage. How so? It lends a luster that's a shine, and more great opinion, a larger dare to our great enterprise than if the Earl were here. For men must think, if we, without his help, can make a head, can lead a force to push against the kingdom, with his help, we shall overturn it topsy-turvy down. Yet all goes well, yet all our joints are whole. What does he mean by that speech?
Saying that if they come in with confidence with a smaller army, they're gonna be like, shoot.
If people see that we're willing to do this without my father and his forces, how much easier will it be with my father? And what he's suggesting is, if we can achieve this victory with this number of troops, we've got it made. Okay? Vernon comes in. Okay? So messenger comes from Northumberland. Your father's not coming with his troops. Vernon comes in. The Earl of Westmoreland, 7,000 strong, is marching hitherwards. With him, Prince John. No harm. One more. Bring it on. The king himself in person is set forth. or hitherwards intended speedily, with strong and mighty preparation, he's welcome too. Notice, Hotspur's full of himself, will take on more. Where is his son, the nimble-footed madcap? Nimble-footed, meaning what? What did King Henry call Richard II? The ambling, capering king. Dancing is what it implies. This implies the same thing. He's essentially saying Prince Hal is just like Richard II was. The nimble-footed madcap Prince of Wales and his comrades that doffed the world aside. Who are his comrades? He knows. Falstaff, Peto, Bardolph, Plans, Vernon, all furnished, all in arms. And then he says this, 104. I saw young Harry with his beaver on, that is his helmet, his cuisses on his thighs, it's part of his armor that covered his thighs, gallantly armed, rise from the ground like feathered Mercury, and vaulted with such ease into his seat, as if an angel dropped down from the clouds to turn in wind a fiery Pegasus, in which the world with noble horsemanship. Now, at this point in time, probably 1404, something like that, a knight doesn't vault into his horse. When you're fully loaded in armor, you get up on a block and then you are hoisted up and the horse is put underneath you because of how heavy the mail and the coat of armor weighs. Okay? And yet he says he vaulted onto the horse. Hotspur, stop, no more. Worse than the sun in March this praise, this nourish agues, that makes me feverish. Let them come, they come like sacrifices in their trim. And to the fire-eyed maid of smoky war, all hot and bleeding will we offer them. The mailed Mars shall on his altar sit, up to the ears in blood. He says, and about the Prince of Wales, come, let me taste my horse, who is to bear me like a thunderbolt against the bosom of the Prince of Wales. Harry to Harry shall, hot horse to horse, meet, and ne'er part till one drop down a course. Oh, that Glendower were come. Famous last words, right? Glendower's not coming. Vernon says, I learned in Worcester as I rode along, he cannot draw his power this 14 days, for 2 weeks. Douglas, that's the worst tidings yet. Worcester, that's a frosty sound. Hotspur, why, may the king's whole battle reach unto. How many men does a king have? 30,000. Let it be. 40, let it be. My father and Glendower being both away, the powers of us may serve so great a day. Come, let us take a muster speedily. Doomsday is near. Die all, die merrily. I mean, like, let's go kill. Okay? We'll stop there. We'll pick up with 4-2 on Wednesday. So we'll finish the play on Wednesday. I was trying to think if I was going to need to cancel Henry IV Part 2, but I think we have time after break to do Henry IV, and then probably only Hamlet. We might be able to do 3 more plays. I did Hamlet in 8 days last time, so we'll see.